Hello everybody, I'm Karen Gaborik, Superintendent of the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District. Happy to be here today on this last day of school for the year 1920, 2019-2020. So first off, I just want to thank everybody, and that means the entire community for this entire year. Always, doing amazing work and adding so much value to our school district family, but especially this last fourth quarter, which is a quarter that will live in all of our memories. It's one we'll never forget, sort of regardless of what our role has been in the district. It's been a very intense 9 weeks. And so I just want to thank everybody who came together and collaborated and shifted on a dime and worked on creative, innovative solutions, both at home with kids, teachers in their classrooms, paraprofessionals doing their work differently than they've ever perhaps done before, nutrition services, school administrators leading buildings with nobody in them, and then all of our district-wide staff helping so many people and our school board members who are our key communicators in the community, helping to bring us all along. And families, I especially want to thank you. I know we all had perceptions perhaps at the very beginning of this about what remote learning might look like, and every single step of the way that changed. And we're actually doing an assessment right now of families from a parent perspective, a guardian perspective of your experience with remote learning, because we really want feedback. And we did, with phone calls, an assessment at the beginning of this COVID-19 event. And people had different ideas about how they might experience this based on their reality at the time. Well, then you get kids at home and you're trying to work at home, and you start to realize it's a different experience with regard to how many devices you have in the house, how many kids you have in the house, what you're trying to balance with work, what you're trying to balance with kids, connectivity, all of that. So we really encourage you. We've got, I think, almost 1,500 responses already to that survey. We really encourage parents and guardians to give us feedback about that so that we can continue to learn and grow from this experience moving forward. And then students, thank you so much for hanging in there with us. We know this was not what you expected, whether you're a kindergartner or one of our 2020 graduates. This wasn't the fourth quarter that you were expecting, and so thank you so much for doing everything you could to stay connected with your classmates and with your teachers and with your school, and especially 2020 graduates. The graduations were so heartfelt, and I just enjoyed each of them so much, and they just had such a unique flavor to each of them. And thank you to the school staffs, especially the school principals, who I know went through a lot of stress to get to the place of having to shift and bring their entire school community from a traditional graduation to a virtual event. So just thank you to everybody who was involved in that and helped support that. And our community partners in all of this too, the television stations and the radio stations, and everybody else in the community who helped with that. Thank you. Just my heartfelt appreciation for all of the support that the school district family has received from the community. So, it's been, so from the time I became acutely aware, which was right at the end or kind of halfway through my spring break, that the world was quickly changing, and became acutely aware of the COVID-19 pandemic hitting the United States, and started to perhaps comprehend a little bit of what that might mean. It's been 10 weeks of high stress. And again, I recognize that has been occurring at all levels of the organization and across the community. So now, after today, for students and families, you both get a much deserved break from school, and for all of our 9 and 10 month staff, also very soon, if not starting after tomorrow, in a few days or a couple of weeks, for some of our 10-month staff, you will also get a much deserved break this summer. I really encourage everybody to just step back from this if you're able to, and especially as Governor Dunleavy opens up Alaska. He's been so supportive, and Dr. Zink has been so supportive of people getting outside, enjoying this amazing state. I hope everybody takes care of yourself, lots of self-care and lots of family care. And it feels like those two things are going to be very important over the summer. So please take a break from this and do everything you can to restore some of your energy. We have lots of social emotional types of resources on our website if you're interested. Everything from resources for kindergartners through seniors to adults, for staff, for families. So if you haven't found sort of a favorite resource, you might scan what's available on our district webpage, and you might find something there that connects with you and sort of helps you with that healthcare, or resources in the community that help you with that self-care piece. As far as the administrative center staff go, we are not done. We're 10 weeks in, and I am pushing my staff very hard for the next 6 weeks. So the pace is not going to slow up for us. A couple weeks ago, our work started to shift in terms of our focus, and we are now focusing on reopening in August of 2020. So we have we are still basically in just short of sprint mode for the next 6 weeks. The administrative center staff, specifically my team, I am giving them their self-care and family care break from July 1st to July 26th. And so, and that's when, again, they're going to need some time to just step back and step away and decompress. And then, we'll pick up momentum again July 27th and just start again high momentum toward the beginning of the school year. So, so summer will look different for some of us, but I hope for many of you, again, you'll take a much needed break from all of this. So I want to talk about a couple specific pieces of documentation today. And so the first one, and this will be posted so that you can see it more clearly. It's also on the district website, and I attached it to the newsletter that we sent out to our entire school community yesterday. It's called Alaska's Smart Start 2020 for K-12 schools. The Commissioner of Education is working on this framework to provide guidance and also to help guide our thinking and planning for school districts across Alaska as we look toward reopening in August 2020. The key components of this, as you'll notice, it's set up kind of like a spotlight. So the key components are the 3 different risk environments. And so what the commissioner has let us know that we need to be ready for is, for the entire school next year, we need to be ready for any one of these 3 possibilities: a low risk environment with regard to public health and COVID-19, a medium risk environment, and a high risk environment. Now, the very first part of some concrete guidance that we're waiting for is going to come from Dr. Zink and the Department of Health and Social Services. Dr. Zink is going to, and her team are going to define for us what puts us in the green zone, what puts us in the yellow zone, what puts us in the red zone. And again, those will be things, it sounds like, as I'm listening to the conversation, those will be things like, is there a community transmission event or trend of COVID-19? And an important piece to all this is that the entire state may be in a particular zone, or a particular region may move in and out of a zone. A school district in a region might move in and out of a zone. A school itself might move in and out of a zone, depending on incidents of COVID-19 and what we're experiencing as a community. So we have to be ready for all 3 of those zones. Lots of things to think about. On the side column, the commissioner talks about the conditions for learning. So those are safety protocols, food services, transportation, social emotional needs, attendance, engagement, a lot of logistical types of things. Continuity of learning, which is what our initial focus is on right now. So school schedules, scope and sequence of curriculum, delivery methods, how we're measuring success, how we're measuring grading, which I'll talk about that in just a minute, and assessments. And then capacity for learning, right? So connectivity, what are budgets like? Student activity is a huge one. Facility use. So there is so many things to consider, so much to consider with what reopening might look like when you think about those 3 zones. So I'm going to focus today on the learning models, because I think that's, as we think about preparing specifically teachers to get ready for August 17th when we reopen, that's where we're going to start. Of course, as a school district, all of the people who work in the operations side of the house are considering transportation and food services and facilities and all those things, and there's lots of blending. But today I'm just going to focus on, for the most part, on the educational model. So here's the key piece. We have to start the school year fully ready for the red zone, which is, again, given the experience we just had, red zone may well be 100% remote learning. For whatever reason, a school district, a region, a town, whatever, the whole state, we may not be able to open school. So we have to be ready for the red zone. Now, we put together something that we could wrap our heads around and do for fourth quarter this year. We have to have a robust learning system in place for next year for the red zone. A likely place that it feels like we might be in terms of actually starting the school year is the yellow zone. And so again, depending on what the mandates and health requirements are from the state, what we're hearing right now is that the yellow zone may very well involve limited number of students and potentially staff, but especially students who can be in a school building at one time based on social distancing requirements. So if the social distancing requirements are 6 feet, and then we have to be thinking about masks and activity and all those sorts of things, we may be able to have students in school, but it will look very different. And what we would be looking at and what we're considering are different versions of partial school week. So perhaps students would go shift A, for example, if we have enough square feet to divide into 2 shifts. And have social distancing in each classroom. So perhaps shift A is at school, and I'm just making up a scenario right now. That's one possibility, right? So just as an example, perhaps shift A is in school Monday and Tuesday. Perhaps shift B is in school Wednesday and Thursday. Perhaps Friday is a planning period for teachers. So again, just one of lots and lots of different possibilities of what that might look like. So we're kind of thinking right now, based on the information we have, that may be how we start school. Now, the green zone is, we hope, very close to a traditional model. The important thing about the green zone is that teachers will fully have to integrate technology and digital learning into their instruction and into student learning during the green zone, so that if we have to shift to yellow or if we have to shift to red, back and forth, that we can do so seamlessly. So lots of planning from a district perspective, lots of planning when teachers do come back from a teacher perspective, lots of planning, again, all the staff that support education. So I think those are just things that parents need to think about. One of the immediate things that became quickly apparent to us is that we need more student devices to accomplish a high quality year of a COVID-19 pandemic and moving in and out of different zones. So we're going to be purchasing student devices, and we're going to bring our level of devices to a level that's called a 1-to-1 level. So for every student, there is a device assigned specifically to that student. Now, at different grade levels, use of those devices looks very different. So, but my goal is that at the beginning of the school year, every student is assigned a device. They have that device. Let's say we're in the green zone, we're all in class. Students are using that device, at least, maybe for a kindergartner, it's once a week. Maybe they're using their iPad once a week with a teacher, so that they know how to log in, and families know how to log in. Maybe they're taking it home on the weekend, so families are very familiar with the device. So that if we suddenly find ourselves having to switch to the yellow zone or the red zone, that piece has been taken care of in terms of the device and in terms of students and staff using that device in an integrated instructional model. The other piece is connectivity, and if we're able, now MiFi's, all of these things are of course a hot item, right? Every single school district in the country is wrapping their heads around these same sort of plans and ordering devices. But the other thing we need to invest in are MiFi's, so that we can help connectivity in some of those areas of our borough that just don't have good connectivity. So we'll be looking at that as well. Professional development. We're going to offer professional development opportunities for teachers all throughout the summer. Again, I really want teachers to take a break, but teachers, self-regulate. I was just talking with a teacher who said, I really like to get my work done in June and then just take a break and then come back in August. Another teacher, I just don't even want to think about this till August, and then I'll start doing some planning. So between teaching and learning, the Alaska Staff Development Network, Alaska Virtual Schools, lots of professional learning opportunities for teachers to get themselves ready for this type of event, and of course full-on support from our teaching and learning department, from our federal programs department, from our special education department to help our educators get to that place. Some educators are there. Some were there before we even had a COVID, our COVID-19 experience. Others, have come so far. They've got a little bit more to go. Some have, a fair amount to go. So we will try to differentiate our support to meet, the entire spectrum of needs of teachers to get ready for instruction. I'm going to communicate over the summer with our entire school district family to give updates about where it looks like things are at. This is not, asking folks to please check your email every week. But again, if you're interested and you're thinking, I wonder what the latest update is on the school district, check for, one of those. Will probably maybe be bi-weekly unless, there's a really significant change, and then I'll shoot something out. But so I'm thinking as the governor moves into phase 3 of the Reopen Alaska plan, we're all waiting for what are the parameters around that going to be? Dr. Zink has a meeting with superintendents across the state tomorrow to talk about, again, what those public health guidelines might be around opening up in August. So as information becomes available, I will send it to the school community. Of course, those of you who are tuned into the governor's Facebook live sessions and his press briefings, you may have sort of gotten in the habit of keeping up with that already, and you'll know it as soon as you hear it come out. So those are the highlights. One thing that's, I think, really interesting is the CDC came out with a guideline just this past Friday, kind of a decision-making tree specific to schools across the country during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I just want to read just a couple things on here. Again, this is online. I think it's being posted right now. You can absolutely spend more time on this if you need to, but here are the things that we have to consider as we're planning for next year. So will reopening be consistent with applicable state and local orders? So I've had a couple people ask me, are you going to follow state mandates? And the answer is absolutely yes, I am. We are going to follow state mandates and guidelines from the Department of Health and Social Services. Is the school ready to protect children and employees at higher risk for severe illness? So what does that mean? What does that look like? Whether they're at risk themselves or they have somebody at home who is at high risk. What does that mean? What does that mean in a green situation? What does that mean in a yellow situation? So here's a huge one. Are you able to screen students and employees upon arrival for symptoms and history of exposure? If you know anything about schools, think about your biggest high school, 1,000 students, over like 120 staff typically. Imagine, just wrap your head around what that screening process looks like. So again, hopefully, and are we talking about every single day? And again, just lots of questions and things that we've got to ponder. So hopeful that guidance will come out from DHSS, and perhaps we can set some baselines and then move from there. But anyway, so there's 3 different columns of things to think about. And, you can see here, if you don't meet that first set of guidelines, if you don't meet the 3 questions, if you don't have solid answers, and these all have to be approved, you don't open school. So we have a ton of work to do. Again, thus the continued sprint by the administrative center staff and specifically my executive team between now and the end of June, because we have got to sort our way through as much of this as possible, as soon as possible. And so With that being said, I will touch on a couple other things. One thing that we have to be cognizant of is that the bus system has to move. We have a lot of kids that we move, right? Like, I think on our best sort of transportation days, we're moving, meaning our most used days, we're moving about 7,000 kids. So the bus system has to work. So we can't have, kind of schools all over the place in terms of their start times and end times and master schedules and things like that. The other conclusion you quickly come to is that I can't have kids half day, because you lose way too much time in the middle there with transportation. So, to maximize your learning time, you probably need kids, if we're going to do on a shifted basis, you need kids, in class for, a full day. So again, what does that look like? Are we doing every other day? Are we doing 2 days in a row? Lots of things to consider there. So nutrition services also has to work in every single zone, right? So we've experienced the red zone, and so we've got that system, and I'm sure that Amy Rouse and her team will be refining that system. What does it look like in the yellow zone? Here's a great question. Do we have students going through the lunch line? Is that safe? Is that healthy? Or is nutrition services going to need to pack their lunches and deliver them in some other way? Breakfast, the same thing. So just lots of pieces of that. Facilities. So there's a level of cleaning. The entire facility staff has gone through training specifically on sanitization for COVID-19. You can't have different user groups coming into buildings and meet the requirements. So that really changes what after school types of activities we may or may not be able to conduct after school hours, because there's a level of cleaning that has to occur after students leave, between when the students who attend that school leave and the staff, and then when they come back the next day. So school activities is another huge topic. So ASA has put together, that's the state, the High School State Activities Association has put together a huge list of resources they've pulled. I think there's 12 different mandates that apply to activities. So we're working our way through what might that mean. And sort of the first wave of activities, of course, fall sports start, I want to say, like close to July 20th, so right around in there that week. Well, there's preseason, there's out of season activities and conditioning that happens. So every single facility, every field, every gym, every weight room has to have a mitigation plan that meets all the requirements, and that every single user, so in this case probably our fall season sports coaches and students and parents are all going to have to sign off on in terms of what activity looks like. There are different rules for outdoors than indoors. So right now we're just trying to work our way through, so can we meet those mitigation plan requirements for our outdoor spaces? We may not be able to meet those right away for our indoor spaces. We just don't have the capacity to do it. There's so many things to consider. So again, my staff is just going to continue. We are just going to continue working on this full speed through the end of June. Of course, every department is working hard basically on how to reopen in August. Given the 3 different scenarios that we think we have, that we have information about now, and of course, as information gets added to that will help define the parameters. Lots of different interdisciplinary groups. I'll have a stakeholder meeting and invite parents and other stakeholders too in early June, and so and then I'll just work very hard to communicate frequently with the community about where we're headed with opening up in August. So anyway, just a little preview. And again, I think it's just kind of important to wrap your head around some of these things. So again, I just want to say thank you for, just quite the extraordinary fourth quarter. Thank you for the part that everybody played in pulling that together. I genuinely, again, hope that people just get a break and enjoy the sunshine and the beautiful weather and get outside. And as we get to intermingle, right, it looks like we get to join some bubbles. So I heard 2 bubbles. You get to, 2 bubbles get to join, right? So I hope, that you have an opportunity to connect with family and friends that perhaps you haven't. And then as soon as the travel restrictions open up, I know our entire organization is waiting because, and again, I would imagine the community is waiting because there are family that need our attention who live outside of of state. And just hope that if that does happen, and if you're able to do that this summer, that that you have the opportunity for that as well. So I think that's a lot to think about. If you have any questions, feel free to email my office. Again, parents and guardians, answer that survey. There's so many surveys out there right now. We're trying to collect info from our support staff, from our teachers, from our school administrators, from families. And so if all the input that you give us will help inform next steps in our work as we move toward August 2020. So thanks again, everybody. And this will be our last Facebook Live for right now. But again, if something comes up and it makes a lot of sense to do one of these during the summer, then we'll do it. I'll definitely schedule one. In the meantime, probably the majority of our communication will be electronic. So hope you have a great rest of your week, and look forward to seeing you in a couple months.